Joining me now is UFC welterweight fighter who defeated Li Jingliang at UFC 221 in Perth, Australia last weekend. It is Jake Matthews here on the show for the very first time. Jake, how are you? Thanks for the time.
Thank you, mate. I'm very well. Just recovering after the fight. It was obviously a tough one and had a ball, but yeah, it was a really good weekend in general.
So as far as any sort of injuries or just bumps and bruises coming out of this one, obviously it was a back and forth fight. It was entertaining. Fight of the night honors for the card. I know your eye was sore afterwards. I'm sure it still is. Anything else sort of as far as bumps and bruises go?
No, you have your general, a couple of my fingers a little bit sore, and I think I checked one of your kicks, so my leg's a little bit sore. But apart from that, just the eye. But that'll is more superficial than anything, so that'll heal up quick, and we'll get back into it as soon as we can.
Now, I was really impressed with the win. I think a lot of people were, considering, Li Jingliang is a tough opponent himself. I mean, he has a great chin. He's pretty skilled himself. Do you feel like this win was your most complete performance to date?
Absolutely, it was my most complete. It's probably reminiscent of, my early days fighting when I was younger and I had less cares, and I'd just go out and just fight, I think I'm still undefeated at welterweight throughout my entire career. And, I just wanted to bring the old Jake back, the old Jake who used to have fun, used to go out there and use his entire skill set. The last fight I had, I think everyone can understand, a little bit of nerves there, obviously coming off a couple of losses, and it was a must-win, so, I used my wrestling and what I had to do to win the fight. But this time there was no pressure, so I went in there and finally got to showcase what I could do.
Did you have more fun in this one than usual? Maybe, but your past couple of fights before this?
Absolutely. I think, apart from my first two fights in the UFC, all the other ones I've gone in there, to try and not lose rather than go in there and have fun and enjoy it. So this is the first fight I've enjoyed in a long time.
What can you sort of credit that to, or like why were you going in there other than your first two fights in the UFC, going in there just not to lose rather than pick up a very good performance and look impressive? Do you know why? Was that just a mental thing you had to get past? Do you have any ideas for that?
Yeah, I do. When you're fighting locally and you're fighting for $300, $500, you're obviously not in it for the money, so there's got to be some other reason you're in it. And for me, it was just the love of the sport, and I love training hard, I love getting there, I love having good fights, and that's why I was doing it. And then when you get in the UFC, the first two fights were similar, and then I lost the fight, and then I got paid, half what I was getting paid, and I realized, this is my living at the end of the day, and when you don't have as much money to get you through to the next fight, you realize, you got to try and support your family, you got to put food on the table, you got things to pay for, and then it slowly becomes more and more like a job. So and you don't want to lose your job. You want to get kicked out of the UFC and lose your means for a living. So I started thinking of it that way in a lot of fights, and I went in there, like I said, not to lose, and looking at it as a job, and it took the enjoyment out of it. But I think the way I fight best is when I don't play safe. I just go in there. I use my entire skill set and hunt for the finish of the entire fight rather than playing it safe. And this fight, every training session throughout fight week, I just kept it lighthearted. I was laughing more. I had fun, and I carried that into the fight. And look where it got me. So I think it's definitely the way to go about it.
What clicked as far as getting you off that just don't want to lose phase that you had for a few fights in your UFC career? Like, what clicked you back onto this track of let's go out there, have fun, let's put on good performances as we saw against Jingliang? What clicked?
Myself and my dad talking about, the old days, what I used to, I was, like I said, I was younger, fighting for less money and just going out and fighting harder. And I think, like I said to my dad, I think we finally worked it out. I said, I just used to enjoy it more. I said, I'm not enjoying it at the moment. I said, it's a job. It's a job to me. I still love it, but it is a job, and that's how I look at it. So, especially for this fight, the pressure's off. I probably could have lost this fight and gone on and done another fight. So, I took all the pressure off myself. I said, I'm going to put it out there. I said, win or lose, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to put on a show. I'm going to use my entire skill set, use all my technique. I'm going to stand up this time. If I get knocked out, it's a fighting sport. At the end of the day, it's going to happen. And if I get a win, even better.
And that's the mentality you're going to use going forward, right? Just because, as you said, it worked.
Absolutely. And I think it was Justin Gaethje. I heard it in an interview, and he said, apart from his last fight, he was undefeated in a lot of fights, and he said, he goes, I go in there, and I'm, in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm going to go out there and try and knock him out, or he's going to knock me out. And I just thought, that's the way to do it. You got to get. If you go and play it safe, you're going to shut yourself down. You're not going to fight your potential. And, all you can do is go in there, give 100%. And even if you lose the fight and you can look in the mirror and say, I gave 100%, you should be happy with yourself.
And ultimately, you're going to make more money because there's a better chance of you getting a bonus as you did. I mean, how nice is that fight of the night bonus? I mean, it's an extra $50,000. Yeah,
the bonuses are good. That's my second one now. And it definitely helps, especially I'm going to, have the middle chunk of the year out, and I've got a couple of holidays planned with the family and one with my girlfriend, so just enjoy life a little bit after 2 back-to-back camps, so let the body recoup, and hopefully getting back at the end of the year. If there's an Aussie card, I'm in. If it's overseas, then even better.
So you wanna take basically the rest of 2018 off? Like, are we gonna not see you fight till November, December, or did I hear you wrong there?
Probably about October, November or so. But, like I said, I've had 2 back-to-back camps now, so let the body recoup a bit. I've got a gym back home, so I want to get that, really, really firing. I was training over the Christmas holiday, so I didn't get to go out on the holiday, so I'm having a holiday. But, once the holiday's over, I'll get back into training. If the UFC presents something sooner, I'll take that. If not, I think, around October, November, they normally have fights in Australia.
And I assume financially that'll be okay, just because it's not like you're making Conor McGregor money, but you've had enough fights where you're not making 10 and 10, so you're making a reasonable purse for UFC standards. Like, will that be okay getting through the year?
Oh, absolutely. I still live at home, so I don't have a mortgage to pay, things like that. So I'm very lucky. A lot of other fighters probably have to go and work day jobs because they've got kids to support, they've got mortgages to pay. So I'm very lucky that I have my family to support me in that sense.
Let's talk about a little more about the Jingliang fight. Were there any surprises? Because, you showed off your improved striking in that fight, but he didn't go down. He did, but he didn't get knocked out completely. He recovered really well. The guy has a chin, and everyone knew that going in, but even still, did it sort of throw you off? Did it surprise you? And if not, was there anything else that did?
Normally someone getting up like that would surprise me. It looks like it's a bit of a bad dream where you're trying to keep someone down and they keep getting up. But, what I prepared for, I'd seen his fights before. He's been put down hard before, and he keeps getting up. So I told myself, I said, if I hurt him, I'm going to jump on him. I'm going to try and get the finish. But I was ready. I said, be prepared. He's probably going to get up. I said, the fight's most likely going to go a distance because it's very hard to finish. So even though, I kept putting him down, I kept going for the finish. Every time he got up, I already prepared myself for that. So it didn't sort of break me in that sense. Whereas normally, I think fighters would get broken and get a bit disheartened from that, and it'd shut them down. But for me, I was actually a bit excited because I'm like, I get to hit him hard again, try and put him down again. So it was a bit of fun.
Yeah, no kidding. One of the bigger talking points out of this fight was obviously Jingliang's eye gouge. Midway through the fight, he gouged you in the eyes pretty blatantly to get out of one of your submission attempts. And he didn't get punished for it. He wasn't the position wasn't taken away from him. He didn't get a point taken away, and obviously he wasn't disqualified. But you still kept very calm. You continued fighting. You didn't argue about it. You didn't, say anything to the ref. Now after the fight, you didn't really blame him. You didn't come off as angry. You stayed professional. When it first happened, though, what was your reaction like when the guy's fingers are in your eyes? What are you thinking? What's going through your mind at that very moment?
Honestly, I was in such a zone that it only fired me up more. I realized, the fingers in my eyes, and then my vision went. I think you can hear my dad asking me in the corner if I could see. I couldn't see out of my eye at all, and my eyes still actually blur at the moment. So my vision's it's getting better, and we've had it all checked out. It's all good, but vision's getting back. But for the rest of I think since I think it was midway through the second round, and then through the rest of the third round, it was just really hazy, blurry vision. So I sort of used a bit of echolocation. I was clicking my tongue trying to find him, but no, it was fine. Look, things happen in fights. If you take all these people on social media, I kind of feel a bit bad for Li. I mean, you put any one of these people in an octagon and say to them, this guy's trying to take your livelihood away. He's trying to take food off your family's table. That's what's going through his mind during that fight. So he's going to do whatever he can to get out of those submissions. He's going to claw. He's going to scratch. So I don't blame people when you're in that state of mind. Things are going to happen. It is a foul in the sport. I think the referee did a good job. If he had stopped the fight, he never know. I could have finished that submission, so he didn't want to stop that and take the submission potentially away from me. So I think he did the right thing. He warned him. I don't think the referee should cop any flack for that either. But I just wish Li all the best for his future fights. There's no hard feelings at all. Hopefully we can do some training together as well. And like I said, if anyone should have hard feelings, it should be me. But I'm all good.
Fair enough. You were on the pay-per-view main card. You were one of the 5 fights on pay-per-view for UFC 221 in Perth. What was that like? This was your second time on a pay-per-view card, but the first time on the main card where people actually had to pay the money to see you fight. How much did this do for your career, and how much did you care about the card placement going into this fight?
To be honest, I could have been the first fight of the night or the morning over in Perth, but it wouldn't have fazed me. Just to be fighting in Australia in front of an Australian crowd, I love it. So if they put me in the start of the card, the end of the card, it's all the same for me. But afterwards, the fight, reflecting back, it's a massive honour to be on the main card of a pay-per-view event and to get the fight of the night on such a big event as well. And to fight alongside all the good Aussie fighters, I think we did pretty well for the day. And obviously another inaugural card in Australia. I mean, I fought in first card in Melbourne, and the first ever card in Perth. So, it's a great honour having to fight in front of Australian fans. And I love fighting in Australia. So I think if you're fighting in Australian cards, I'd be happy.
Well, that leads me to one of my questions. I was just going to ask, do you have any desire to fight in the U.S.? Again, I know you fought there, I think, once, maybe twice. Most of your UFC fights have been in Australia. Do you want to fight in the U.S. or North America or anywhere but Australia, or do you not really care?
Like I said, I'm not too fussed where I fight. Obviously, to get my name out there, and eventually, if I want to step up the competition, I'm going to have to go and fight internationally. I like fighting in Australia. To me, I get to train at home for longer. All my friends and family can come and watch me. I've got the crowd behind me. I know a lot of fighters don't actually like fighting at home. I like fighting at home. I like having a crowd behind me. But I've fought in Vegas before, and what an experience that was. So if UFC want me to go and fight in the States, I'll fight in the States. If they want to keep me in Australia, I love that too.
This was your second UFC fight at welterweight. You, of course, moved up in your last one. You defeated Bohan Vlishkovic. Now you defeated Jingliang. How has it been at 170 pounds? Obviously, the weight cut is a lot less of a factor. You're not nearly as drained. How nice has it been at 170? Or do you not love it as much as maybe you thought you would?
No, I loved it even more than I thought I would. I knew it would be better. I didn't think it would be this much better. I didn't think I'd be, as big as I am. I mean, I walk around pretty big, and I start dieting a long way out. And by the time I get down close to 155, I was just completely depleted, lethargic. Fight week, I normally couldn't do a training session. They'd be very laboured training sessions. I couldn't eat. It's just a miserable time. And like I said, you carry fight week into your fight. So if you're not enjoying it, you're not having fun, you're feeling tired, there's not enough time to recover, especially when we cut weight the day before the fight. So, fighting at lightweight, when I was 19, it was all good. As I got a bit older and developed a bit more, obviously got bigger, it just progressively became harder. So it was and when health becomes a factor, as it did in the last couple of lightweight, it's a no-brainer. So I've gone back up to welterweight. I fought welterweight all my fights prior to the UFC, and I was undefeated there. So I'm loving it back at 170, and this is definitely home.
Do you feel like you found a new life in the division just because, you debuted in the UFC back in 2014 as this hot prospect. You were undefeated. You're 19 years old. You had the world in front of you, all the potential in the world, and then you got a couple wins, but you had a couple setbacks. You've had a few setbacks in the UFC. And I feel like some people started to doubt you maybe even too soon than they should have. And now here you are back on a 2-fight winning streak at 170. Do you feel like a completely different fighter? Do you feel like you have found a new life, a new career at 170?
Absolutely. Like I said, 170 is home for me now. Move up to a weight class. I think most fighters will understand. It feels like starting again. So all my enthusiasm back. There's going to be new opponents, new styles of opponents. Obviously, letting my body just be its natural size. I'm not going to be the taller guy in the division, per se, as I was in lightweight. I might not be the bigger guy, so I'm going to have to change my fighting style. And coming back after hip surgery after 5 months off, it was like completely blank canvas and just start again. So changing my style up, changing my striking style, changing my wrestling, changing my strategy. So to me, it felt like I was starting MMA all over again, and it brought the enthusiasm back, and it felt like back when I was 15 and I just went into my first class. So definitely loving coming to welterweight, and I think it's going to be a big couple of years for me in the future in welterweight.
So with the win over Jingliang, that puts you at 2-0 in the UFC welterweight division. Where do you fit in? Like, are you ready for another top 15 opponent, or do you want to be built up a little slower? Like, where do you see yourself in the division? Because it is pretty stacked right now. We have a lot of up-and-comers at the bottom of the top 15 right now.
Yeah, but I think welterweight is one of those divisions that's just constantly, full of good talent. I mean, I know some other divisions, they have their times, and then it sort of slackens off a bit, but I think welterweight is constantly good. I mean, we're the size where we're fast and we still have power. So it's a very exciting division. I haven't looked at my ranking since the Jingliang fight, but I'm not in any rush. I mean, I'm only 23. A lot of people say I'm not going to be in my prime until I'm close to 30. So for me, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So take it fight by fight, and the UFC understand this too, and they've got the best matchmakers in the world. So I know they're not just going to throw me to the wolves; they're going to build me up, and they're very smart about how they do that. So whoever they want to give me next, that's who I'll take, and I trust in them that they think that I'm ready for that fight, and we'll take it fight by fight. So I'm not in any rush. There's no timeline or no end date for when I want to eventually get to the title or top 10. It's just whenever it happens, it happens. And we'll just take it for a ride.
You're 23 years old. You made your UFC debut at the age of 19. The Jingliang fight this past weekend was your 9th UFC fight. We don't see someone as young as you with so much UFC experience. Is it crazy to you to look back on the past 4-ish years and just see how many fights you've had in the UFC, how much experience you've had? And again, I mean, you're still only 23. Is that kind of crazy to look back on?
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. I mean, it seems like only yesterday I made my UFC debut. I think it's nearly 4 years later. Definitely doesn't feel that long. I mean, now I've had more UFC fights than non-UFC fights. So I think I only had seven fights before I got in the UFC. I've had more fights in the UFC than outside. So it is crazy to me, but at the end of the day, I'm not surprised. That was my goal back then. I just wanted to fight when I could, get wins, work my way up. Like I said, there was no date or timeline to when I want to achieve things. I know I've got a long time in the sport, so I'm just going to play it smart and hopefully be in the sport as long as I can.
Now, the average fighter doesn't start fighting nearly as young as you did. Obviously, you're always trying to train and fight as smart as possible and as safe as possible, as healthy as possible. But have you considered the importance of training smart as a fighter like you, just because you started so young, where to ensure that you don't end up being like a guy who's still young as far as the actual age goes, but you have so many miles on you, so many fight years on you, and to ensure that you have a long career. Because look at Jordan Mean. I mean, the guy, he's still 27, 28 years old, but he's had so many fights, and he does appear to be past his prime, even though he hasn't even hit 30 years old. And I think another example that hasn't started yet, but I think Max Holloway, he's still only 26 or so, but he's a champion and he's had so many fights, and I feel like he might start to decline sooner than a lot of people think. What do you make of all that as a guy who's has quite a bit of experience at 23? Like, how important is it to make sure you're training smart, to make sure you don't start declining quicker or earlier than most fighters?
I didn't, I had a different mindset back when I was younger, but now it's definitely important. I mean, especially since having my hip surgeries, I was against it. I was saying, no, I don't want to have hip surgery. It's going to put me out for 12 months. I'm not going to have a fight for 12 months. It puts my place in the UFC in jeopardy. And then doctors sit me down. They said, Jake, if you don't have a hip surgery, you're going to have your first hip replacement by the time you're 35. And you're probably going to be in a wheelchair by the time you're 50. So, and you're not going to be fighting as long as you can. And when that was put to me that way, I was, it sort of opened my eyes a bit, and not only for that surgery specifically, but everything else in training. And that includes, people probably thinking I should get in and have another fight after that last one, after that last performance, and keep the roll going. But, it's not just physically, it's also mentally. You're talking about Jordan Mean and these other guys. I think they're just trying to smash fights out, and it's not just, like he's only like 26, 27. It's not so much physically that he's declining. It could be mentally as well. I mean, once you do something for so long and so many times, it starts to get stale. I mean, I played football for 9 years when I was, before I got into the UFC, and after a while, it just became really monotonous. It's just, I'm training this day, that day. I'm playing a game on the weekend, and doing that for 9 years, it's a bit draining, and it's good to mix things up. So that's why, mid-year, I've never really had a holiday and had time off mid-year. I've just been training all the way through, so I'm changing it up. And then, by the time it comes to the end of the year, I'm going to be ready to fight again. I'm going to be itching to get back in there, rather than just being a constant thing, just train, fight. So, both mentally and physically, it's definitely smart to be, a bit more cautious how you train. Things like rehab now, we've got a physio on board, so she's helping me with recovery. Making sure I go through my rehab with my hips properly, pre-fight, post-fight, making sure everything's in check. And I think a lot of fighters are on board with that now, using more scientific methods of training. And I think you're definitely going to see longer careers now because of it.
Now, a lot of people have criticized you in the past for training with your dad, and I know that comes on, it's kind of bizarre in a way, just because it seems to be working out for you. I mean, you've had a successful run in the UFC, and that just doesn't go for you, but other fighters. Look at someone like Sage Northcutt. He gets a lot of criticism because he's, his head coach is his dad. But if you look at another example, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, it's worked for him. He's fought for the title 2 times. Will that ever change? Will your current coaching position with your father, Mick Matthews, will that ever change, or are you completely happy with that?
Yeah, that will never change. If it wasn't for my dad, I truly believe it wasn't for my dad, I wouldn't be in the UFC. He's kept my head on straight. He sort of not only coached me with the martial arts, but he's coached me, with things like interviews, being around media, how I should present myself outside of the octagon, how I should be handling myself, both inside and outside. So, he got me to Ultimate Fighter tryouts. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been there, and a lot of other things throughout my career. So that'll never change. A lot of the things that I use, the techniques that I use, my dad comes up with himself during my fights. So he's more than just keeps my head on straight. He's there every training session. He's with me every training session. He keeps me company. Being a fighter, especially in Australia, we don't have these big super camps. We've got a big team of 30 fighters in one gym. We all have to travel around to different gyms, so it can get pretty lonely. So, he's with me every training session. Things like diet, he helps me with. I mean, I'd be absolutely horrible at dieting if it wasn't for my dad. So I truly believe that, I'm the one in there fighting at the end of the day, but if it wasn't for my old man, I don't think I'd be in the UFC at all. So, yeah, that'll never change.
As a fighter who trains in your home, your home country, home continent of Australia, and someone who doesn't travel to train too abroad, do you feel like it's a myth that fighters have to, fighters who weren't born in North America, particularly the United States, have to go there, have to travel to the U.S. and train at a big American top team or combat club, Team Alpha Male, Jackson Wink? Do you feel like that's sort of a myth that you need to be training in the U.S. to get the best training and to become an elite fighter, the best fighter you can be? Is that untrue?
I believe so. I mean, look at Rob Whittaker. He was training in Australia, smashed his way into the UFC. He went over to train in I think he was in Canada, and the next 2 fights he lost. He's back home training, and look at him now. I mean, he's middleweight champ. And as soon as he came back home, he hasn't lost a fight since. Daniel Kelly. He's beat Rashad Evans. He's beat some other big names like Chris Camozzi, guys like that. He's always training in his own gym in Melbourne. We train twice a week together. Myself, I think looking at the average fighter's UFC career being, I think, 2 or 3 fights, I think I've done pretty well being having 9 fights. So I've been to America, and no doubt, the training is awesome there. Obviously, it costs a lot of money to go over there. It's a lot cheaper to train at home. In Australia, we don't have a room full of 10, 15 UFC fighters to spar with. That was the main difference I found. I mean, in Australia, if you're committed enough, you can source out just as good coaching and training as you can in the States. That's the only thing. I have to drive, an hour one way to go do striking training. I have to go an hour the other way to go do wrestling, and so on for sparring and jiu-jitsu. But, if that's what I got to do to seek out the best training at home, that's what I got to do. And I think a lot of Australian fighters realise that now. We're also getting, we're getting big groups together with guys, getting good sparring sessions, and not so much like these super camps in America, but it's getting there in Australia. So I don't think that we have to go overseas. And for me, it's about being a true Australian-born fighter. And if I'm going overseas getting coached by, let's say American coaches, for example, training in an American gym, I don't feel like I'm a true Australian fighter. I want to be bred here, Australian coaches, train Australian gyms, and I want to pioneer the way for Australian MMA. It's the only way it's going to get better here. If we keep all our best fighters take off overseas, it's never going to progress.
Well, let's end it on that. Jake, thank you very much for the time. I really, really appreciate it, and congratulations on the win. Before I let you go, let my audience know where they can find you on social media, and if there's anybody you'd like to thank or give a shout-out to, the floor is yours.
Yeah, just quick thank you to my coaches. First of all, my dad, as I was saying, he's helped me tremendously. Jiu-jitsu coach Carl Severa from Sea Polista, Peter Hatton, my striking coach, all my sparring partners, there's too many to name. And thank you all the fans that have helped out. You can find me at Jake Matthews UFC on Twitter and Instagram, and Jake the Kelsey Kid Matthews on Facebook.